Night was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of night where the street looked empty, and only the sound of far-off dogs could be heard. A yellow streetlight flickered again and again, making the whole place feel even more strange. On this silent road, a woman stood alone. Shaking, her name was Maya. She held her belly with both hands. Her face showed fear, pain, and something deeper, a silent cry for help. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she tried to speak, but her voice broke again and again. Right in front of her stood a man, her husband. Rohan, his eyes were red with anger. His breath smelled of alcohol. He looked at her like she was not his wife, but someone he hated. In his hand, he still held Maya's scarf, which he had pulled so hard that she almost fell on the ground. "Why do you always make me angry?" he shouted. Maya stepped back. She wanted to answer, but she was too scared. She touched her belly again, whispering, "Please, don't. I am pregnant. Please." But Rohan did not care. He moved toward her again, raising his hand the way he had done many times before. His shadow on the wall looked big and dangerous. Maya closed her eyes, ready to take the hit, and then a loud bike engine roared from the end of the street. It was not a normal sound. It was deep, powerful like thunder. Maya opened her eyes and turned her head. Rohan stopped too, confused. A single bike was coming toward them slowly, but its presence felt heavy, strong, almost threatening. The bike was black. The rider was wearing a dark jacket. His helmet hid his face completely. He came closer, then stopped, just a few steps away from them. For a few seconds, everything was silent. Even the streetlights stopped flickering. Almost as if the night itself wanted to watch what was happening. The rider slowly turned off the engine. He did not rush. He did not shout. He simply sat there for a moment, as if he was reading the whole scene, every detail, every tear, every bruise on Maya's arm. Then he removed his helmet, but only halfway. His face still wasn't clear, only his eyes could be seen. Calm eyes, quiet eyes. Eyes that noticed everything without saying a word. Rohan raised his voice first. "What are you looking at?" "This is my wife. Go away," he said, trying to sound brave, but the biker did not move. Instead, he opened the bike stand, stepped down, and took one slow step toward them. His boots made a heavy sound on the road. Maya looked at him with fear, but also with hope. Something about him felt different. Safe. Rohan took a step forward too, trying to show he was not scared. That was when the biker finally spoke. His voice was deep, slow, dangerous. "Touch your belly again," he said, "and the night will not end the way you want." Rohan froze. For the first time, he looked nervous. He looked at Maya, then at the biker, trying to understand who this stranger was. But the biker didn't blink. He stood like a wall between Rohan and Maya. "Stay out of this," Rohan tried again. But his voice was weaker now. The biker took another step toward him. "I don't like men who hurt women," he said, still calm. "And I hate men who hurt pregnant women." Maya covered her mouth as tears fell again, but this time they were mixed with relief. Someone, finally, was standing up for her. Rohan swallowed hard. The street felt smaller now, like it was closing around him. The biker's silent pressure was stronger than any punch. Maya held her belly again. Her heart beat fast. Something was about to change. In the night. It was only beginning. Long before the night of the biker's warning, Maya's life was very different. People who knew her always said she was soft-spoken, gentle, and full of quiet hope. She loved small things, morning tea, sunlight through the window, and stories about happy families. She never asked for too much. She only wanted peace. When Maya first met Rohan, he was a completely different man. He smiled easily. He spoke kindly. He promised her a safe life, a good home, and a future full of love. Maya believed him. Everyone did. Even her parents felt she was lucky to get a husband like him. In the early months of marriage, he tried. He truly did. He brought her flowers from the market. He cooked for her once on her birthday. He held her hand when they went for walks. Maya trusted those moments. She thought they would last forever, but time changed him. Rohan lost his job. At first he was upset, but quiet. Then slowly that quiet turned into frustration. Frustration turned into anger. And anger turned into something darker, something Maya never saw in him before. He stopped talking politely. He stopped smiling. He stopped caring. Every small thing made him angry. Late food, misplaced shirt, even the sound of Maya laughing on a phone call with her sister. He began shouting at her for things she did not understand. Sometimes he stayed out late at night, coming home with the smell of alcohol and the weight of disappointment on his shoulders. Maya tried to support him. She tried to talk. She tried to help him find work again. But he saw her help as interference. He pushed her away emotionally until one night. He pushed her physically. It was not a hard push, but it was enough for Maya to understand something terrible. Violence had entered their home. After that, things got worse. He started locking the door when he left, telling her, "You don't need to go out." He kept her phone. He controlled her every move. Maya felt like a bird trapped in a dark cage. Still, she stayed. She hoped he would change. She hoped the man she married would return. Then one morning, she found out she was pregnant. For Maya, the news felt like sunrise after many dark nights. For the first time in months, she smiled. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "Maybe now everything will be okay." She imagined Rohan changing. She imagined him becoming gentle again. But Rohan did not react the way she expected. When she told him, he looked at her without emotion. Then he walked away. Days passed. He became more irritated, more distant, more cruel. Maya tried to hide her stress for the baby's sake, but every day was harder than the last. He shouted at her for resting. He blamed her for small things. He accused her of ruining his life. One evening, she was making tea when he came home drunk. Without warning, he grabbed her arm so tightly that she cried out. He shouted nonsense, things she didn't understand. She kept telling him, "Please, I'm pregnant. Please listen." But Rohan's anger had no ears. From that day forward, he started pushing her even when she begged him to stop. Maya lived in constant fear. She stopped sleeping properly. Every night she placed her hand on her belly and prayed the baby was safe. And then came the night when everything exploded. He returned home angry about money. He accused Maya of doing nothing. He dragged her outside, ignoring her cries. Maya kept touching her belly, trying to protect the baby with her hands. Her heart felt as if it would break. She stood under the flickering streetlight, shaking. And that was when the biker arrived. The stranger who saw what no one else ever saw? The man whose single warning froze Rohan in fear? Maya didn't know it then. But the moment the biker stepped forward, her life had already begun to change. The night the biker appeared was not a sudden moment of violence. It was the result of months of darkness building inside Rohan. His anger had been growing like a fire with no water to control it. But this fire did not start big. It started small. Very small. It began the day he lost his job. At first he tried to hide his disappointment. He told Maya, "It's fine. I'll find another job soon." But every morning came with more bad news. Every interview ended with, "We'll call you." And that call never came. Slowly, he stopped searching. He started staying in bed late, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes. Maya would bring him tea, hoping to give him strength. But he didn't even look at her. When he finally did look at her, it wasn't with love. It was with irritation, like everything wrong in his life was somehow her fault. The real change began with silence, a deep, cold silence inside the house. He stopped talking at dinner. He stopped listening to her stories. He stopped asking how she was. Then came the shouting. Small things became huge fights. A broken cup. A slightly burnt roti. A late electricity bill. Every moment became a spark for anger. And that anger soon turned into insults. Maya often stood in the kitchen, holding her breath, afraid the next sentence would break her completely. "You're useless," he would say. "You make everything worse. You should be thankful I married you." Maya learned to stay quiet. She learned which words triggered him. She learned how to walk without making noise. She learned how to smile even when she felt her heart shaking inside her chest. But the biggest change came when Rohan started drinking. He found comfort in alcohol, temporary comfort, but enough to make him forget his failure. Every night he came home late. Every night he smelled of smoke and cheap liquor. Every night he opened the door with the same heavy anger in his footsteps. Drinking changed him fast. Soon the shouting wasn't enough. His hands became part of the anger. A push, a squeeze on her wrist, a slap if she tried to defend herself. Maya never told anyone. She hid her bruises with long sleeves. She covered the dark marks on her arm with makeup she did not like to use. She kept saying to herself, he will change. He just needs time, but he didn't. The news of her pregnancy made things worse. Rohan wanted a child, but he didn't want responsibility. He didn't want the pressure of being a father when he already felt like a failure. So instead of love, he gave Maya more fear. If she walked slowly, he complained she was acting weak. If she rested, he called her lazy. If she smiled, he asked, "What are you so happy about?" The house became a prison. He kept her phone. He locked the door when he left. He told neighbors she doesn't like going out. When in reality, he forced her to stay inside, Maya's world kept shrinking until only the kitchen and bedroom remained. She talked only to herself. She held her belly every night, whispering, "Stay safe. Please stay safe." Then came the worst night. Rohan came home drunk, angrier than usual. He shouted for no reason. He threw things. He grabbed Maya's arm so tightly, she felt her skin burn. When she cried and begged him to stop, he dragged her outside to teach her a lesson. It was that night, under the flickering streetlight. When he raised his hand again, that was the moment the biker appeared. In the dark street, Rohan saw someone stronger than his anger. Someone who didn't fear him. Someone who looked at him like he was nothing. For the first time in months, Rohan felt small. And Maya felt hope. A hope she had forgotten existed. The biker's arrival wasn't an accident. It was the beginning of something Rohan could never control. The biker stood between Maya and Rohan, like a silent wall. His presence was strong, cold, and strangely calm, the kind of calm that made other people nervous. Maya did not know anything about him, but somehow, she felt safer near this stranger than she had felt in her own home for months. But this stranger, Ayan, was not just any man. People in the area had seen him before, riding alone, never speaking much, eyes always observing everything around him. He was known as someone who didn't like trouble, but never walked away from injustice. He existed quietly, like a shadow that appeared only when needed, before crossing paths with Maya. Ayan lived a life filled with danger, discipline, and rules. He once worked in a private security team, a team that protected important people in risky places. He had faced violence, crime, and chaos. He had seen what cruelty looked like. He had seen what helplessness looked like too. Maybe that was why the sight of Maya holding her belly, crying under the streetlight, hit him so deeply. He had seen fear before, but this fear was different. This fear belonged to someone who could not protect herself or the baby inside her. Something inside him stirred. Something he thought he had buried long ago. The instinct to protect. Back on the street, Rohan tried to stand tall, but his voice shook a little. "Who do you think you are?" he snapped. Ayan didn't answer immediately. He simply tilted his head slightly, as if he was still waiting for Rohan to understand his warning. Maya watched them both, her heart racing. She didn't want violence, but she also didn't want to go back to the nightmare she lived in. She kept her hands on her belly, hoping the baby couldn't feel her fear. Ayan finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "I am someone who doesn't tolerate men like you." Rohan's face changed, half anger, half fear. He looked around to see if anyone was watching. Some windows had opened slightly. Shadows moved behind curtains. Neighbors were listening. That made Rohan even more uncomfortable. "You don't know anything about my wife?" he said loudly, trying to sound innocent. "She is dramatic. She lies." Ayan cut him off. His tone didn't rise. His expression didn't change. You dragged a pregnant woman outside, he said. I don't need to know anything else. The truth hit Rohan harder than a punch. Maya's eyes widened. She had never seen anyone speak to Rohan with this kind of calm courage. She had never seen anyone make Rohan feel small. But Ayan wasn't thinking about pride. He wasn't thinking about winning. He was simply thinking about safety, Maya's safety. He stepped closer to her, but not too close. Just enough to show that he was there, protecting, watching, guarding. Are you hurt? He asked softly. Maya shook her head, but tears kept falling. I'm fine. I think. Thank you. The way she said thank you made Ayan's jaw tighten slightly. He wasn't used to emotional moments. But something about Maya made him feel responsible. Maybe because she reminded him of someone he once failed to save. Long ago, Rohan watched them with growing anger. He couldn't accept that his wife was speaking to another man. He couldn't accept that he was the weaker one. He tried to step toward Maya again. Ayan immediately shifted. Blocking him, Rohan stopped. Ayan's voice dropped even lower. If you want to talk, talk from there. But don't move toward her again. Rohan wanted to shout, but the words stuck in his throat. The biker's confidence was not normal. It came from training, experience, and a past filled with things Rohan could never understand. The air around them grew tense. The street felt colder. Even the wind stopped for a moment, waiting to see what would happen. Ayan looked at Maya again. You don't have to stay with him tonight, he said gently. Not if you don't feel safe. For the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she had a choice, and for the first time in his life. Rohan realized he was not in control. The stranger in black, the biker with calm eyes, changed everything with just one warning, and the night was far from over. The street felt strangely silent as Maya stood behind Ayan, trying to steady her breathing. The fear inside her was still alive, but for the first time in months, it wasn't the strongest feeling. Something new had appeared inside her, a small spark of courage. A spark born from the simple fact that someone was finally protecting her. Rohan, however, was far from calm. His anger mixed with embarrassment. He could not believe a stranger was challenging him in front of his own wife. His hands shook, partly from alcohol, partly from humiliation. He looked at the windows where neighbors were watching. The shame burned his pride like fire. You think you're a hero? Rohan growled. You're interfering in my family matter. Ayan didn't step back. He didn't even blink. This is not a family matter, he replied. This is violence. The words hit Rohan deeply. For a second, he froze. Then the anger inside him burst again. He stepped forward, pointing a finger at Ayan. You don't know anything, he shouted. She always does drama. Ayan raised one hand, stopping him mid-sentence. No, he said calmly. Enough lies. Maya's breath caught. No one had ever silenced Rohan before. Rohan's pride, stabbed by the truth, pushed him into a reckless decision. He lunged forward, swinging his fist toward Ayan's face. But Ayan had seen it coming the moment. Rohan's shoulder moved. He shifted his body slightly. Rohan's punch missed. Before Rohan could try again, Ayan grabbed his wrist and twisted it, not hard enough to break it, but enough to make Rohan fall to his knees with a cry. Maya gasped. The neighbors whispered. Rohan's shock was louder than his pain. Ayan spoke with the same cold calmness. Sit down. Think. Control yourself. But Rohan wasn't ready to listen. He pulled his hand back and got up again, anger rising like smoke from a burning house. You think I'm scared of you? He shouted. I'm her husband. I can do what I want. Ayan's eyes sharpened, but he stayed silent for a moment. He wanted Rohan to hear his own words. He wanted him to understand how cruel they sounded. Maya whispered, her voice trembling. Rohan, please stop, please. For the baby. But Rohan ignored her. Her fear only made him angrier. He took a step toward her, a fast, aggressive step. Ayan moved instantly. He stepped in front of Maya, blocking Rohan completely. This time, his voice carried weight like steel. "If you touch her again," he warned, "you will deal with me." This wasn't the same calm warning as before. This one had a deeper edge, the kind that came from a man who had seen real violence, who knew how to stop it, and who would do anything to protect someone innocent. Rohan felt the shift. The threat was real. And yet pride pushed him forward again. He swung at Ayan a second time. This time, Ayan caught Rohan's arm, pulled him forward, and used his momentum against him. Rohan stumbled. Ayan stepped behind him and pushed him away with his forearm. Rohan landed on the ground, breathless. Maya covered her mouth in shock. She had never seen Rohan so powerless. Ayan didn't move closer. He didn't continue the fight. He simply stood still, ready in case Rohan tried again. But Rohan didn't. He saw the faces at the windows. He saw Maya standing behind Ayan, trembling but protected. He saw his own weakness in front of a man who had said only one sentence, but controlled everything. His pride shattered into pieces. He tried to stand up, but his legs felt weak. He pointed at Maya with shaking anger. You made me look like a fool." Maya took a deep breath and finally spoke, for the first time without fear. "No, Rohan," she said softly. "You did that to yourself." Those simple words broke something inside him. Ayan looked at Maya with quiet respect, then at Rohan with cold caution. "You should go home," Ayan said to Rohan. "Leave her alone for tonight." For a moment, Rohan wanted to argue, but he saw the strength in Maya's eyes, strength he didn't remember giving her, so he turned, stumbling away into the darkness, defeated by the stranger he had tried to fight, and by the woman he had once controlled. The street remained silent, but everything, absolutely everything, had changed. The street was quiet again after Rohan disappeared into the darkness. Maya stood frozen, staring at the empty direction he had gone. Everything felt unreal, the shouting, the fear, the fight, the warning. She held her belly gently, as if making sure her baby was still safe inside. Ayan turned toward her, his voice soft for the first time that night. "Are you all right?" Maya nodded slowly, though her hands were still shaking. I think so." Her voice trembled, breaking like paper in the wind. Ayan noticed how weak she looked. She wasn't just scared, she was exhausted from months of silent pain. He took one careful step closer, not wanting to startle her. "You need to see a doctor," he said gently. "Stress like this isn't good for you or the baby." Maya looked down at her stomach. Her eyes filled with tears again. But this time, they weren't only from fear. There was relief mixed in. Safety. Something she hadn't felt in a very long time. "I don't have anyone." She whispered. Ayan understood more than she realized. He had met many people who said that same sentence in different ways. Broken voices, tired eyes, shaking hands. People who had lost hope. People who carried their world alone. "You're not alone tonight," he said simply. Those 5 words made Maya's heart tremble. She didn't know who this man truly was, why he stopped his bike, why he stepped into her darkness. But she felt something she had forgotten existed: protection. With slow steps, Ayan guided her toward his bike. "Can you walk?" he asked. Maya nodded, though her legs felt weak. Ayan didn't touch her without permission. He walked beside her, close enough to help if she stumbled, but far enough to respect her fear. They reached the bike. Ayan looked around and spotted a small bench near a tree. "Sit for a moment," he said. Maya obeyed. She took a deep breath, feeling the cold air clear her mind a little. Ayan used his phone to call for help. He didn't call an ambulance. He called a small private clinic he trusted, a place where emergencies were handled quietly and safely. When he returned to Maya, she looked up at him with tired eyes. "Why? Why did you help me?" she asked softly. Ayan didn't answer immediately. He looked at the flickering streetlight at the empty road, at the place where Rohan had yelled and raised his hand, because, he said slowly, no one should suffer alone, especially not someone carrying a new life. Maya lowered her head. She didn't know what to say. All the pain she had hidden for months pressed against her heart, and for a moment, she let herself cry, silently, freely, without fear of being punished for it. Ayan didn't interrupt. He simply stood nearby, giving her the space she needed. After a few minutes, the clinic car arrived. A nurse rushed out, checking Maya gently. "She needs rest," the nurse said. "She's stressed, but she and the baby will be fine." Naja's shoulders finally relaxed. Ayan helped her get into the car, but before she entered, looked back at him. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved me." Ayan shook his head softly. "You saved yourself. You stood up tonight." Maya didn't fully believe that, but his words gave her strength. The clinic car drove away, and Maya watched Ayan through the window until he became a small, dark shape under the streetlight. He didn't leave in a dramatic way. He simply stood there, watching until she was gone, as if making sure she reached safety. The next morning, Maya woke in a clean room, sunlight warming her face. The doctor told her everything was stable. For the first time in months, she felt a tiny drop of hope. She made a decision. It was time to protect her child. It was time to protect herself. It was time to leave Rohan's shadow forever. With help from the clinic staff, she filed a report. She wasn't shaking this time. She wasn't whispering. She spoke clearly, as if Ayan's calm strength had passed into her. When she stepped out of the building, she looked around, half expecting to see the biker again. He wasn't there, but in her heart. She felt he didn't need to be. He had come when she needed him. He had stood between her and danger. He had given her the courage she thought she had lost. Now, it was her turn to stand for herself. A new dawn had begun for Maya, a life without fear, without darkness, and without pain. A life where she walked forward, carrying not just her baby, but a strength that had finally awakened.